This happened to me about a week ago. I found a summer job at our local supermarket about 2 weeks in. I got asked to work the late night shift, 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. I accepted since I was pretty in need of money and I never went to sleep early anyways. Everything was fine and dandy until about 3 a.m. when a shirtless, scarred-up guy came into the store. After lingering around the store for a while, he quickly came up to the counter, making intense eye contact with me. As I was about to ask him if he needed any help, he then said to me,
"Don't you dare move."
I couldn't really hear him at first, so I asked him if he could repeat that. At that point, he got agitated and then yelled,
"Make another sound and I'll slice you up."
And in a very swift motion, he vaulted over the counter going to the alcohol section, trying to grab a bottle of whiskey. Thankfully, the owner has hid a baseball bat under the counter. The moment he turned his back to me, I took the bat and swung full force at his knee. He winced in pain and tried to get up. I held the bat up again, acting like I was going to hit him once more, just to see him pull out a homemade shiv of some sort. I let him get up, and the moment he got up, he swung his shiv at me, lightly lacerating my wrist. I pushed him back with my bat and ran out of the store and got out. The next day after, I decided to call the cops and showed them the security footage, but they haven't contacted me since. I think it's safe to say that I won't be working the late night shift again for a really long time. It was just way too creepy for me. This happened a really long time ago, so my recollection of this isn't going to be word for word, but here goes. I'm a teenager and me and my mother live alone. We live basically in the middle of nowhere. The nearest town is a little less than an hour away, and the only things we have near us are a gas station and a bar. I know everyone who lives near me, and we rarely ever see new people in our neck of the woods. So just seeing someone who isn't familiar is suspicious enough, so this was pretty creepy. A couple of years ago, it was the middle of the night and me and my mother are night owls. We like to be awake from that midnight to 6 a.m. time period that most people prefer to be sleeping during. My mother was watching TV in the living room and I was using the computer in the kitchen. The kitchen and the living room are basically connected, so I wasn't too far away from her. Only a few feet. The front door leads right into the living room. It's a door with about 9 windows, so it's pretty easy to see inside. My mom looked towards the door, and she said that she saw somebody staring at her through the window, and he was wearing a hood that obscured almost all of his face. My mom jumped, and she of course walked to the door and asked him what the heck he was doing. According to my mother, he looked pretty young, but she could barely see his face, so who really knows how old he was. The man said something along the lines of,
Could you please help me with my car?"
in a tone that I can only describe as miserable and very off-putting. Even though it was dark out, there should have been enough light for her to see a car, but there was no car. The man was also holding his hands in his pockets pretty tight. My mother said no, but that she was sorry she couldn't help. This caused him to grip whatever was in his pockets even tighter, so tight that it caused his arms to tremble. He stayed for a few more minutes and then had swiftly disappeared. Throughout the night, maybe 1 or 2 hours later, we thought that we had heard some slight weeping, but we didn't see anyone at any of our doors or windows. I might just be making assumptions here, but I can only assume it was a weapon that he was holding in his pockets. This was a really creepy experience, and it's safe to say he was probably going to lure my mother out of the house so he could do something sinister to her. About a year ago, there was a very small metal plate jammed between the front door strike plate and the piece that goes inside of it. I'm not really sure what it's called. We have zero idea where this metal plate came from, but the metal plate stopped our doors from locking, so I'm assuming it was put there so that somebody could get in later. These two situations are probably not related, but in hindsight, it's really made me think about him because this was deliberately placed there by somebody, and we're not really sure why. Anyway, I'm just really glad we ended up being okay and nothing bad actually happened, but it's still pretty creepy. I lived alone on the 4th floor of an on-campus apartment building when I was in college. Early one morning, around 3 a.m., I was awakened by a knock at my door. I got up half asleep and went to the door and peeked out of the peephole. There was a large guy standing on the other side of my door. I'd lived in the building for a while and I knew my neighbors pretty well, but this guy was unfamiliar to me. I didn't open the door but called out to the guy in the hall. "What do you want?"
I need to use your phone.
He answered. "Dude, what? It's like 3 a.m. I told him.
Yeah, I know. My car is broke down outside. I need to use your phone.
The guy said. I was still pretty blurry-eyed and foggy-headed, but something just seemed so weird about this guy, so I refused to open the door. The guy got frustrated, saying he was in need and I was not being neighborly and nice. I still refused to open the door, and then he started insulting me. Finally, after repeated refusals to open the door, he then left and I went back to bed. I didn't really think much of it until the next day when I was sitting in class going over the whole event in my head. It really struck me as very odd that this guy would choose my apartment to go to and ask for help. After all, I lived on the 4th floor in the middle of the hall. He didn't knock on any of the other doors, just mine. When he left my apartment, he didn't try any of the other neighbors. He just left the building. I realized at that moment that he had likely targeted me. If I had lived on the 1st floor near the doors, I might have let it go, but on the 4th? He had gone up 4 flights of stairs and halfway down the hall just to ask to use my phone? Yeah, right. The thought alone put a cold lump in my stomach, especially when I started to remember that there was a payphone in the lobby of the building. Even now, I get chills whenever I think about what might have happened if I had opened my door. I honestly almost did because around that age I always wanted to be liked. Fortunately, my gut instinct won out and I'm here to tell the tale. Thank God nothing happened.
So this happened in April of this year, 2018. Background: I live in a major city in Texas. My apartment complex is gated and in a good neighborhood, but the security isn't extremely tight. Sometimes the gates are left open, and anyone could piggyback off of someone else entering with the access code. Maybe twice in the past 3 years, the management has put out notices of vehicle break-ins or other items being stolen from porches. We also have frequent door-to-door solicitors, even though there are signs forbidding it. Okay, so this particular Friday evening, I go to bed about 2:30 a.m. For some odd reason, I was having trouble getting to sleep, so I put on a podcast to listen to, and eventually start to doze off. I become aware of a noise that sounds like a clicking sound, but it sounds like one of my upstairs neighbors making some noise. I kind of zone this out, as I'm used to my neighbors staying up late on weekends. After about 30 seconds, I realize the noise is extremely repetitive and getting louder. I then start focusing on it more intently, trying to isolate what it could be and where it is coming from. Suddenly it hits me. It's coming from the entrance to my apartment. I leap out of bed and head to the foyer. I identify the noise right away. The lock mechanism is moving back and forth rapidly, like someone is trying to unlock the front door. I can hear that an object is inserted in the lock and the person is jimmying it back and forth with a lot of force. I instinctively turn around and head to my bedside safe, unlock it with the combination, pull out my .357 SIG pistol, load a 14-round magazine, and chamber a hollow point round. I head back to the door, and as I exit the bedroom, I see the lock twist and unlatch. I immediately pointed my weapon straight ahead, knowing that if someone comes through, I will have to make a split-second reaction. I decide that if someone comes through the door, I will give them a momentary chance to retreat, but if they do anything other than that, or enter aggressively, I'm going to shoot and ask questions later. They don't enter, however, because I had also locked the deadbolt inside only. When I first moved in a year prior, I remember thinking that the deadbolt was a great security feature, and I got in the habit of always keeping it locked when I'm home. In hindsight, this decision saved me from a life or death confrontation. Upon realizing that, I approached the door and looked through the keyhole. On the other side are 3 Asians, 2 men and 1 woman. All 3 are wearing hoodies, so it's difficult to make out their faces. The men have objects in their hands. I can't make out exactly what. The 2 men are talking back and forth, probably trying to figure out why they can't open the door, even though they have successfully opened the outside lock at this point. The woman is also talking loudly, behind the 2 men, such that anyone in the hallway would be able to hear her voice. She's talking in another language. The only words I can make out are blah blah blah, apartment 250, blah blah blah, and she keeps repeating that over and over like a broken record. Upon hearing that, I start to wonder for a moment if maybe they're just drunk and have the wrong apartment number. But that's impossible. To open my lock, they would have to have a copy of my exact key, or some kind of lock-picking device. I've never copied my key or given it to anyone. Here's the other thing. Not only is 250 not my apartment number, but as I figured out later, that apartment number doesn't exist anywhere in the complex. Standing back from the door, I take a long broom handle and jab it hard into the face of the door, letting them know that I'm on the other side. They immediately stop fiddling with the lock and take off running. I debate whether to call 911 and decide against it, unless they return. I know they'll be long gone by the time anyone gets here. It would be too risky to follow them to try and get a better description or license plate, and I don't have enough identifying info as it is to make an arrest. I filed a police report the next day and let the apartment manager know. They said it was unusual, but they would alert the resource officer and ask for a police presence for a couple of nights. Nothing ever came of that report, but that's not a surprise to me. It's been 7 months since this happened, and no further incidents. Nobody else in the apartment has reported anything similar happening. I don't think they'll be back, but one precaution I took was to buy a smart lock for the deadbolt, so I can leave that deadbolt always locked from the inside, even when I'm not home. It's crazy to think that the deadbolt was the only thing between myself and an armed confrontation with intruders. They say you don't really know what you'll do in those situations until it really happens, but I can honestly say I am proud of how I stayed calm and was mentally prepared to defend myself. If there's one good thing that came out of this, I feel confident that I responded the right way and was ready for the unthinkable. So 3 a.m. burglars and your female accomplice, let's not meet again. And for your own sake, please find a safer way to make a living. There's nothing in my apartment worth dying for. Last night, my wife and I made a typical trip to our local Walmart. Generally, we go between 1 and 3 a.m. I'm a night owl by nature and have a long-standing aversion to busy stores during the day. Long story involving a holdup. Our local Walmart, which is on the access road of a major interstate highway, is the newest in our area and generally considered safe. A few notes to start off with. The particular area of Texas that my wife and I live in is commonly known for being an area frequented by sex traffickers. It's so bad that the city has put up billboards about sex trafficking since our county recently had a large prostitution bust involving women who were victims of sex trafficking and Johns with occupations ranging from local pastor, deputy sheriff, elected officials of the city council, big business owners, and one of my clients that is now a former client since he got himself involved with that crap. There's a particular area of our town that most know not to venture to at night, especially if you're a female. Ironically, this bad area is adjacent to a large university. However, my wife and I live in the suburbs on the south side of town, which is generally considered safe and is well patrolled by the local police department. We have 2 Walmarts in town, one in the bad area and a new one built in our suburb. The Walmart we went to last night is the new one located a couple miles from our house. Also, my wife is 27, but looks around 19 or 20. She's an attorney that teaches deadly force, castle doctrine, situational awareness, and handgun safety to women throughout our area. She's been involved in martial arts since she was 5, has a license to carry a handgun, and routinely carries a Sig Mark 25 in her purse. In short, she's well trained for detecting dicey situations. My wife drove our truck to Walmart, and I sat in the back working on correcting an issue with one of my mobile radios. I'm a ham radio operator. She parked in a well-lit area near the 24-hour entrance as usual. As typical for the hours we go to Walmart, the parking lot was mostly empty, except for the employees who parked near the same entrance. As soon as my wife put the truck in park, a newer gray Kia SUV pulled in sideways, almost blocking my wife from driving any further. A woman in her late 20s, looking like she was under the influence of drugs, stared at my wife for a few seconds, got out of the SUV, ran over to the driver's side window, and started knocking on the window. My wife, being skeptical of any encounter like this, barely cracked the window to see what the woman wanted. Here's what occurred.
I need your help. That man over there needs a jump, and I'm afraid to go by myself.
We don't have any jumper cables. However, I'll call the police for you if you're afraid.
No, I need your help. It'll be quick. I just need your help for a few minutes.
Does that man have jumper cables? How do you know him? I'm just trying to make sure you're not going into a dangerous situation yourself.
Oh, he's got jumper cables. I just need your help now.
Apparently, the crazy woman didn't notice me in the back seat, so I figured it was time to make my presence known. My wife told you we'll call the police for you. We'll be happy to wait here in this area until they get here. For our safety and yours, please get back in your car and wait.
No, fuck you. I don't need a damn man involved. Women need to stick together. Come on, honey, I'm scared and I need your help. I'd help you out if you were in the same situation.
I'm not going anywhere with you. I don't know you, and I'm certainly not walking into a situation that I know sounds like a setup.
You don't understand. I just need you to make sure that I'm safe while he jumps his car. I need you over there now.
There's a man one row over that parked right around the same time as us. Why didn't you ask him for help?
I need your help.
I called the police, let them know what was going on, and told them we needed an officer ASAP. My wife rolled up the window, but the crazy woman kept standing around our truck screaming and pointing for my wife to roll down the window again. Sick of this crap, and probably against my better judgment, I got out of the truck and told the woman in a few colorful phrases where she could go if she didn't leave us alone. The crazy woman ran back to her SUV and sped off toward the dark, unlit area of the parking lot where the newer Honda Accord was parked. I got back in the truck and told my wife to lock the doors again and be ready to get the hell out of there if the man and woman start heading our way. While we were waiting for the police, I observed the woman parked next to the Honda, roll down her window, and start talking to the man. It was apparent they were in a heated argument, but we were too far away to hear the contents of the conversation. At no point did either of them make an attempt to jumpstart the Honda. In fact, I never saw the man get out of the Honda. A couple minutes later, a police officer showed up. I flagged him down, told him what happened, and pointed out where the man and woman were parked. As soon as the first police officer started driving toward the dark area of the parking lot, the woman screeched the tires on her SUV and started hauling toward the other entrance to the parking lot. Around the same time, the Honda that was supposedly dead magically turned on. Fortunately, another police officer was turning at the entrance and was able to stop the woman. A third officer arrived shortly afterwards. My wife and I went into Walmart, did our shopping, and came out about 20 minutes later. When we got back to our truck, both the Kia and Honda were getting towed by a tow company known to work with the local police department. I'm not sure exactly what went down, but I assume that both the man and woman were arrested. If the woman's behavior was any indication, she was heavily under the influence of drugs and likely had some either on her person or in the SUV. Later, I asked my wife what she would have done if the crazy woman would have approached her while we were walking. and made an attempt to pull my wife towards the SUV. Her response? I'd have knocked the crap out of her. So to the crazy woman who tried to bait my wife to either be the victim of robbery or sex trafficking, let's not meet again.
Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed today's video. And remember, if you have your own personal scary story that you'd like to send to me with me to narrate on my channel, be sure to submit it directly to my website at southerncannibal.com. And before we bring this video to a close, I just want to shout out all of my $5 or more patrons, as well as my $3 or more patrons featured on screen. Shout out to Babe Lincoln, Beryl S., Kate E., Katrina T., Celeste S., Ellie S., Heather B., Howard R., Joseph F., Lori J., Matthew B., Michael G., Tammy S., Too Etchy For You, and Victor R. Thank all of you so much for supporting me on Patreon, and if any of you would like to join these awesome people and also become a patron, head over to my Patreon at patreon.com/southerncannibal. Thank you everyone, and have a good one. And remember to always stay on.